Hi, this is Carlos Cousins, and this is a sentence completion question. For this sort of question, what is important is, yes, that you know the vocabulary and the answer choices, but more importantly, that you look for clues um, in the structure of the sentence that might give you some criteria to look for in the answer choices provided. So let's go ahead and do that together. Because Alfredo Rodriguez is more blank than the previous captains of the Tigers, his leadership will in all likelihood be less blank than theirs. Well, we have the word because here, which implies that the clause following this comma is going to have to provide a reason for the clause preceding it, and we have less, which means that this word here is going to be somehow inherently different or oppositional to this word in meaning, since both of these are adjectives, and we can see that. So the first criterion then is going to be that the causal relationship between both clauses is kept. The second criterion is going to be that the meaning of the words on either side is opposite. So I'm going to have a plus and a minus sign here, plus meaning positive, minus negative, and these are opposite to each other, so just for me to remember. And then, of course, we're going to be watching out for the meaning or the coherence of the sentence being kept by the actual meaning of the words. But let's go ahead and see which answer choices make sense based on these three criteria. So the first one, the causal relationship is kept. Parsimonious and frugal. So because Alfredo Rodriguez is more parsimonious, that means less willing to spend money than were previous captains of the Tigers, his leadership will in all likelihood be less frugal. Again, that means the same thing, that he's cutting back on expenses. So both of these things mean the same thing. So the causal relationship doesn't work precisely because these words aren't opposite in meaning. So that doesn't make sense, and there would be no coherence then. So let's go ahead and consider the second one. Again, we already see here the dictatorial and tyrannical have a very similar meaning. So we should know already that this isn't going to work. But let's go ahead and see why. Because Alfredo Rodriguez is more dictatorial, so acts like a dictator, a person that doesn't allow freedom to other people, than were previous captains of the Tigers, his leadership will in all likelihood be less tyrannical. Well, a tyrant is like a dictator, a person that isn't a good steward of the power that he's given. So that doesn't make sense. In fact, he would be more tyrannical if he was more dictatorial. Now, this third one here, we see that they have different meanings, reputable and scandalous. So because Alfredo Rodriguez is more reputable, has a higher reputation, people think better of him than the previous captains of the Tigers, his leadership will in all likelihood be less scandalous. So be less scandal surrounding his leadership. Well, that makes sense. If you ask the question, why will his leadership be less scandalous? A good answer then would be because Alfredo Rodriguez is more reputable. So it satisfies the causal relationship. As we saw, reputable and scandalous have opposite meanings, and it keeps the coherence of the sentence. So that's why this is the best answer choice. Looking at the other two, however, because Alfredo Rodriguez is more phlegmatic, so a person that is calm on the face of really most things in life. It's a personality trait. Than were previous captains of the Tigers, his leadership will in all likelihood be less boring than theirs. Well, if you're really calm in any sort of position all the time, you're never going to really be entertaining. So this doesn't really make sense unless we assume that for some reason being phlegmatic is going to provide amusement to people, and that's an assumption that's a little too far-fetched, so that doesn't make sense. Because Alfredo Rodriguez is more understated, so portrayed as being less than he actually is, than were previous captains of the Tigers, his leadership will in all likelihood be less methodical than theirs. So he's going to be a person that doesn't do things methodically. Well, that doesn't really make sense unless we assume that he's not going to have to work as hard in planning the way that he will do things because he's been understated. And that, again, is a far-fetched assumption. So this is why this is the best choice for this sentence. I hope that helped. Happy prepping.